Hey guys, Greg here. Let's start off the new year with my review of the new Bob Dylan movie, A Complete Unknown. I really love this movie, and I did not come at it as a major Bob Dylan fan. Not that I don't like Bob Dylan, respect him. He just wasn't one of my top 10 artists. So, and I probably wouldn't have gone to see this at the theater unless somebody gave me a ticket. Really glad they did. I saw it on New Year's Eve here in Los Angeles. And I'm going to give it like an 8 out of 10. Very strong recommendation. And I'll give you some reasons why and some background about the movie. So this movie is not one of those epic biopics, music biopics, that tries to cover 50 years in 2 hours, because that's impossible. Like the Leonard Bernstein movie that came out a couple years ago, which I think was a pretty mediocre movie. Tried to do too much. This movie is specifically on a short but important period in Dylan's life, 1961 to 1965. 61, he comes to New York, hits the folk scene as a complete unknown, and tries to make his way into the folk scene, into the clubs. Starts out by meeting people like Woody Guthrie and Pete Seeger. And I'm not going to tell you the story. I'm not going to give you a lot of spoilers because I encourage you to go see it. But my point is that the movie does not bite off more than it can chew. It covers a specific period that has a specific story arc and comes to a conclusion that makes sense. And it's really the start of Bob Dylan's major career. One reason these biopics are hard to do, besides they cover too much time, is that they try to cast actors who have to do too much. All the main players in this movie sang their own parts. The Dylan, the Joan Baez, the Johnny Cash character. So it's hard to cast somebody who looks like the person and can act and can sing. That's very hard to do, and this movie did a great job in casting those folks. Bob Dylan, what's the kid's name? Timothy Chalamet. I'm gonna mess it up. He was wonderful. And the movie went out of its way to make him look like Dylan, with the hair and the outfits, that brown jacket that he wore. You know, there are many times in this movie you'll feel like you're watching Bob Dylan. Is this movie Oscar worthy? I think the most likely Oscar nomination is actually going to be for Ed Norton's portrayal of Pete Seeger. Very well cast in terms of this tall, skinny white guy with the same facial shape, but if you've seen Pete Seeger, Norton really did a good job of portraying his speech and his mannerisms. Chalamet might get nominated, which is fine, great, good for him. But I think Ed Norton has an even higher chance of getting nominated. So the movie was called A Complete Unknown, which is a very appropriate lyric from the Like a Rolling Stone song. But the original working title of the movie was Going Electric, and I'm glad they dumped that name, because that name, Going Electric, applies too much to... Is it a movie about a guitar? No, it's not a movie about a guitar. Yes, electric guitar features prominently in the main plot point of the movie, but I'm glad they didn't call it that, because that sort of belittles the impact that Dylan had on us. And he really starts out in New York as a complete unknown. And it's strange that we don't know anything about Bob Dylan. That even comes up from one of his girlfriends. Like, we don't know. You got a Jewish name? You're Bobby Zimmerman? We don't even know who you are. We don't know where you come from. We don't know who your family is. We don't know how you got here. I think that's part of the mystique that Bob Dylan tried to create for himself. He named himself after Dylan Thomas and got rid of Zimmerman. Robert Zimmerman, nice Jewish boy from Minnesota, of all places, I think, Minnesota. Somewhere in the Midwest. One common criticism that people have of all these biopics and historical movies is the whole concept of how historically accurate are you? And I don't really want to make that a complaint about this movie. Movies have to do what they have to do to squeeze 4 years into 2 hours. They have to take liberties. So a couple of the well-known ones in this movie. First time Dylan came to New York to meet Woody Guthrie, Pete Seeger was not there. They compressed multiple events to turn it into what might have been a likely meeting of those three people. Doesn't have to be the first meeting. Historians, back off. It's a movie. It's not a documentary. It's not a biography. Go read a biography if you want more historical accuracy. The other historical inaccuracy that Dylan himself inserted into the movie was the name of his girlfriend. In the movie, the blonde girl who ultimately appears on the cover of the Freewheeling Bob Dylan, her name in the movie is Sylvie Russo. Dylan actually spoke to the producers himself and said, I don't want you to use my old girlfriend's real name, which was Susie Rotolo, I think. Susie was an artist in her own right, and from her point of view, she spent her whole life trying to get away from the identifier of, oh, you're Bob Dylan's old girlfriend? No, I'm my own person. I'm my own artist. Being Bob Dylan's girlfriend was a 2 or 3 year period in an 80-ish year life. So that was nice of Bob Dylan to be protective of one of his old girlfriends. Other historical inaccuracies, don't care, doesn't matter. It's a well-acted movie. Many things in movies are over-dramatized. Did Pete Seeger really want to pick up an axe at one point? We doubt it. He's a very peaceful man. He was angry, but I doubt he picked up an axe at any point in his life in a violent rage. I'm freewheeling, freebasing this thing, as I often do. Hey, this time I saw the movie. Unlike my last movie review that did really well on YouTube, I saw the movie this time, so give me some credit. So I noticed something in the movie that probably no one else noticed, so I'm patting myself on the back. There's one scene like 2/3 into the movie where Dylan is walking through New York at night, whatever street downtown has all the clubs, and the folk club scene was burgeoning, and the jazz scene was burgeoning, and stand-up comics and rock music was sort of a thing then. But as soon as he walks out of the club onto the street, he hears this cacophony of all these different clubs. And the first thing they play is about 4 seconds of a jazz tune. I'm like, I recognize that tune. Yeah, it's Ornette Coleman's Lonely Woman, the very beginning with the bass thing with Charlie Hayden. I'm not even sure you got to hear the saxes. But I went home and I Googled it, and somebody published a list of 70 songs used in the movie, and I was correct. Even amongst the cacophony of multiple things going on, I'm bragging. So when you see the movie and you hear that bass line, you're like, that's Ornette Coleman, Lonely Woman. Why they used a studio recording instead of a live club recording to give it the club ambience, I don't know. They probably mixed in all kinds of other stuff. So the main characters, main actors in this thing, you've got the Dylan kid, does a great job. You've got Joan Baez, played with, I remember her name, Monica Barbaro. She did a great job. The guy who played Johnny Cash did a good job, but he doesn't look convincingly like Johnny Cash. Johnny Cash is such a unique figure. He portrayed the attitude, the rock and roll rebel attitude of Johnny Cash, but he didn't really look that much like Johnny Cash. The other guy in the other Johnny Cash thing was a more believable Johnny Cash. Was it Phoenix? Joaquin Phoenix? In conclusion, highly recommended this movie, 8 out of 10. You don't have to be a Dylan fan to get into it, to love it. The music is wonderful. And the portrayal of the music as it has touch points in our culture, I thought was very well done. That's an important thing for biopics, music biopics, to do. And Dylan had such a major influence over our culture, over folk music, over rock music, over the way the music business is treating serious music, protest music, as opposed to gumdrop and lollipop bubblegum music, which I'm not a fan of. That's about it, guys. Go see the movie and let me know what you think. And I think I'm a bigger Dylan fan now than I was when I went to see the movie. I think that's the positive impact on this movie. And I'm sure it's won some awards already, and I'm sure it'll win some more. A complete unknown, like I still am. Thanks, guys.